What do a red light and a feed bucket have in common? And what does it have to do with horse training? Hi, I'm Gage of Confident Horsemanship and the Equestrian Partnership Coach. Did you know that you and your horse learn the same way? Those unwanted behaviors that he has and the unwanted emotions that you feel when you're riding can both be learned in the same way? That's because you're both conditioned response animals. What's a conditioned response? Well, every time you see a red light, for example, when you're driving, your foot moves to the brake, or at least I hope it does. That's a conditioned response. And when your horse sees you carrying a feed bucket, he may nicker or paw or come to the gate, and that's a conditioned response too. So what's a conditioned response? It's simply a behavior that through training becomes an automatic response to an otherwise neutral stimulus. So that red light only takes on meaning when you're learning to drive a car. That bucket only takes on meaning for your horse when he sees it arriving at every mealtime. The most well-known example of conditioned response is the Pavlov's dog experiment. That's the one where he rang a bell before the dogs were fed. Now, the bell was the neutral stimulus. It didn't affect the dogs at all. The food caused the dogs to salivate. Now, eventually, when he rang the bell, presented the food, the dogs would start to salivate just when they heard the bell ring without the food being present. Now, conditioned responses can be helpful, like seeing the red light and your foot automatically moving to the brake, but they're not always helpful. Both you and your horse can develop conditioned responses to certain situations or stimuli that are not helpful behaviors. In plain language, you get triggered to do something or feel a certain way. And you and your horse can get into a cycle of triggering each other to feel anxious. Let's say, for example, that your horse has experienced pain from an ill-fitting saddle at some point in his life. Now, you, of course, have made sure that his saddle fits him properly and he has no pain, but he continues to be grumpy when being saddled. He pins his ears, he moves away from the saddle, and maybe he even threatens to kick when he's being girthed. All those unwanted behaviors are conditioned responses to the saddle. So you may react to your horse's threatening behavior by becoming either annoyed or anxious about saddling him. You automatically feel that way every time you saddle him up. That annoyance or anxiety is also a conditioned response to the saddle or the saddling experience. You or your horse can have conditioned responses to all sorts of stimuli, even from events that happened years ago, like experiencing riding a bolting horse as a child and years later still being terrified to canter or to ride out on trails. But anything learned can be unlearned. So the good news is that these conditioned responses have all been learned, and that means they can be unlearned. For your horse, the same behavioral learning processes that led to the formation of a conditioned response can also be used to teach new behaviors or change old ones. With the use of positive reinforcement, and as long as any pain has been removed, your horse can learn to look forward to being saddled. For you, changes can be made quickly by learning mindset techniques that release the emotions connected to past memories. And in my next post, I'll be sharing how to change your negative thinking pattern so you'll build your confidence and get better results when you're riding. If you're struggling with fear or anxiety in any area of riding, or are with a particular behavior that your horse has, why not book a free assessment call with me? I'll help you figure out an action plan that'll get you enjoying the ride. Click the link below to book your free call.